If you can show up in places where people are looking for you, you make them the geniuses for finding you. That was my job at MTV. It was this. Oh yeah, Mandy Moore, she's gonna be a big star. You could be the person who like finds her. We could be the network that like makes a star. Like we could literally claim that we gave her the first opera. Like that's a part of social media I wish people saw in real social media, was how you have to socialize like a concept in corporate media, because it looks like what social media should look like. Proof and fun and conversation, not promotion and link clicking and hashtag spamming. And you're right, the AI knows. So like my recommendation, drop the hashtags. Be ahead of the curve. Drop the hashtags.
Welcome back to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. I'm Dave Polikoff, your host, and today we're going to have a fun conversation because I have someone on today that has a really interesting background, a lot of great stories, a lot of great people that he has helped grow their personal brands in the past, and he's going to be walking us through some really interesting and unique ways to grow our personal brands that you wouldn't hear anywhere else on YouTube or on LinkedIn or anywhere. We had a great conversation before, and he was wowing me with some of these tactics. So today we are talking to the Vinnie Potestivo, who is a visibility and expert and media advisor for VPE.tv and IHaveAPodcast.com, where he helps his clients who struggle with being seen and recognized for their expertise to provide strategic visibility and media positioning that helps them gain credibility, opportunities, and lasting influence. Of Vinnie, welcome to the show.
Yo, fun. That's the word. F-U-N. Fun. That's like I'm in this explosive growth area in media between like momentum and sustainability. And the only way to link those two energies together is fun. And sleeves are rolled up. I'm ready to talk, man.
That I actually really love that because I mean, I'm going to have a separate solo episode on creator burnout.
Yeah.
And I think the core element to that is just you need to have fun with what you're doing in order to sustain. And yeah, I totally agree.
But fun has to come. You know, you learn fun as a child through structure, through adult, and there needs to be structure put to that fun. And the shows that I created over 20, 30 years in media at MTV and Bravo and A&E and NBC and like the places where I've worked didn't come just because I had a great idea and I had fun. They came because we had an organized way to develop and move conversations forward. And what I actually learned in TV the hard way was how to socialize content, the very thing that I'm here to talk about that we could be doing on social media ourselves, but we make some blunders because we fall into the spam verse of promotion versus like brand building. And that's fun. Like that's the fun part. That's where it becomes human again.
For sure. Well, let's get into that. So talk us through your history, because you got a really interesting one that I know our audience is going to love to hear. So kind of give us like your background in entertainment and how you got into personal branding.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I always wanted to support people who just brought conversations and unique audiences together. Like I love being in the audience and I would do anything to see someone shine. And that was like my driving force into the entertainment industry. In college, I created a database because I have a computer background. I'm a computer compliancy officer for Y2K, headed in a very different non-creative direction. But I had this opportunity to create a space, a database, and then put out an ad and got a little over 700 submissions sent to my college dorm room, which was like my Zuckerberg moment. But I created a database, and that got the attention of Fox News, which had a show called Hannity and Combs, a conversation from two sides of the aisle where dialogue was encouraged. And I got to help grow and expand with that show. And then I landed at MTV News first for 10 years. And it was this idea of how do you add to the story? How do you realign what the facts are without changing the facts? And the answer is you have to change the truth, and you change truth through action. And that's really, for me, where reality TV comes into play. And I went on to get a lot of credit for creating and being part of the launch of Punk'd and Osbourne's, Yo Mama, Wild 'N Out is still on MTV.
Man,
The
these are
Challenge
throwback
is still on
names.
MTV. So I worked at a platform that was craving growth, and my solution for that was collaboration. I started going down to the studio. So I get to MTV in '98. You know, TRL's already happening. Celebrities already want to go to Times Square. I have an ID card that says casting and talent now because I'm supporting the casting and talent people with the way that I know how to build infrastructure and scale communication. Be human and also be responsible for how we connect with people, and we can search for things. And I was in the room, and being in the room was the trick to my trade, to be really honest. And from that came the opportunity to listen in on conversations, and ultimately the idea of a talent development department came up in '99, and I was already one of the people connecting artists to producers in unique ways because there was, you know, a music label usually in between the artist and MTV. There was usually a music label rep. Our department completely took that, you know, apart respectfully. There was still promotion. There's need to talk about music, but like as we were shifting into creating our own content so we could grow our brand, MTV was a cable brand. Same way Bravo was a cable brand. We created enough content to create enough volume of media to take that brand globally, both MTV and Bravo. I'm doing it now with LinkedIn too, just through podcasting, because like we own the space because we own the episodes. That's very different than TV. And if I can help people create content,
you were creating, because a lot of time, music and entertainment for the longest time, especially because, you know, social media wasn't around and like TV was like 3, 6, and 9, and then we start to see social media come out. We start to see like shows like TRL come out, where it gives you a little bit more of a taste behind the music, behind the entertainment. And now there was a need for someone to kind of bridge the gap between like the talent and beyond what you see on the screen or what you see on a record. It's like, yeah, they have more to give than just that. It could be their own personal show. It could be a reality TV show about their lives. It could be this or that, whatever. So you were kind of like finding the magic between those two things.
You know what's funny? You say that? I was everyone's side job. Everyone. Beyonce, in between albums, I got to cast Beyonce in Carmen, a Hip Hopper, her first ever featured acting role in a film that we put, you know, MTV produced. So I'm not touching her music career. I'm just touching her film career. Mandy Moore, I brought her to MTV, made her a host first, and then an actress, and then she launched it. And I can go on and on with celebrities that I got to do that with, because celebrities were the original people who woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm going to create something and put it out in the world. And that just wasn't something that we were empowered to think about the way that we wake up now, and not just consume content, but create content and put it out wasn't something that I feel like non-creatives, non-talent were encouraged to do. I think that's why those two words have changed, because I was in talent development in the 90s. That meant artist and actor and athlete and celebrity development. Now it means our inner core skills and the ability that we can work with. That's the core basics of building brands right there. And we can own it again. And in ownership of our content, not the stuff that we're posting on social media, but the stuff we're creating that we have ownership over, full 100% ownership over. There's so much power in where that can take us.
Curious,
especially
like,
with a strong personal brand. Sorry.
You've worked with a lot of celebrities, big personalities, and it sounds like you kind of even maybe were able to spot the talent, if you will, prior to maybe other people seeing it as well. What are some of the things that you look for in a person to go, okay, I know how to work with you to make you shine in your most natural light and be most successful? Like, how can we kind of replicate that for ourselves to know like where we're most comfortable and where we're going to be most successful?
I look at the data. So it's more than just a vibe in the room, because I know, to be really honest, as a casting and talent executive at MTV, that everyone's going to give me their best possible version, and they're pitching to me that they want a reality show. They're a little afraid they might look goofy, and I'm like, but why do you what do you do that's goofy? It starts with data points, though. The artists that we worked with at MTV, for example, there were data points that made them fascinating to me. Ashton Kutcher was a global name, a box office hit, a television sensation in terms of being an actor, but he hadn't broken through in terms of being a boss in terms of being a business owner, in terms of owning intellectual property until Punk'd happened. And we knew that that was the series that would give him the platform and empower him to do what his goal. And we knew this is what his goal was to continue to incubate and create large scale opportunities for us to connect with each other beyond just media. Jessica Simpson also had a master brilliant plan. She had to realign what the world thought of her because media dictated who she wasn't. MTV gave her the space to tell her who she was. So there's data points that we start looking at to say, you know, as a network, well, what conversations do we want to be creating so that as word of mouth spreads, people realize that we're the source, not the resource. The show is the resource, but the platform is the source of this conversation. And that's like how I was trained to think about development. That's how I post all of my social content. You know, consistency is a 4-letter word to me sometimes. Because consistency, people think it's like just the act of, you know, regularly doing the same thing, you know, regularly showing up.
Frequency.
But consistency is just frequency. It's just regularly doing something. You know, you can be consistently healthy. You can be consistently on point. You can be consistently on time. I'm consistently within the context of what I talk about when I show up, visibility, amplification. I geek out over this. There's like little knobs and levers that we can pull that will instantly get us global visibility. And I don't know, at a point in time where visibility is your viability, where the amount of people who see you or the amount of people who can buy into what you're selling and offering and supporting, like that's something that I can help people control. And you don't have to go through the gatekeepers in television anymore because we have, you know, decentralized media platforms, digital streaming opportunities, social opportunities, and even podcasts, you know, even more now than ever. So, and TV knows it. So that's why I think we're all here. That's why we're leaned in.
Yeah. It seems that like the cable companies realize that no one really is tuning into cable anymore. So it's like, how do we then translate what we're typically putting on our cable channel into some sort of social platform? Like you see that with SNL now. All of the skits from SNL are now on their YouTube channel, like within hours of them being live. And I don't watch SNL, but I'll tune in. I'll get in my feed, I'll see the skits pop up and I'll watch it on YouTube. So it seems like it's less, we're kind of shifting the attention into some different platforms.
That's where I specialize, though, is in that second screen. So, like, for example, there was data that pointed out that people would go to certain platforms looking for certain skits and they weren't there and they would get frustrated. And that would cause discourse. And sometimes discourse in social media is great because when there's demand and there's action, so now people are talking about it, they want it, it's not there, and eventually it gets there. So like maybe part of the reason why it's there in such a quick, short time is because of the intentionality behind allowing people to share it. The same way that I know that Jimmy Fallon develops segments within his show specifically for the intent of premiering them in broadcast and then making them highly, highly shareable. That's why those games are so fun and sugar, reality TV, sugar, adrenaline,
right,
and silly and easy to watch. But like, look at what's on repeat on MTV right now. No disrespect to the number one show on that network. Not that I had nothing to do with it, but Ridiculousness is literally about the scroll. It's an infinite scroll, and that's what that audience wants right now. And they can build community around identifying certain stories, then that's going to help that audience specifically connect with each other. And so MTV as a digital TV platform serves as like a launch pad for a conversation. And then it looks to TikTok and its other platforms to really nurture those conversations. You could literally see the programming comparison and how they're supporting it. That's leadership. Leadership isn't just starting conversations and posting every single day. Leadership is literally supporting conversations that you've started, changing the dialogue.
That's interesting. I mean, it's part of my content strategy, but I want to hear from him from a full-blown production standpoint, even thinking about like from cable to social, the idea of actually having intention of like, how is this then going to play on social? So taking like the long form piece and injecting a segment, a clip into it that is going to end up being like the clip that ends up making this episode popular because it's going to play well on social. How are people thinking about that? And I know that's maybe we're talking about like a TV show, but from like a YouTube video or a podcast episode, like should we also be thinking about, all right, how could I like find a segment where I can use that for social
Yeah,
conversation?
the word here is propagation, and it's a word that a lot of creators aren't aware of, that creatives are hyper aware of, because propagation is literally the act of taking our segments and pitching them. So every segment that you see, infamously, by the way, TV networks, NBC, ABC, MTV used to have a news department, but ABC, NBC, they have news orgs. And what happens in the cable channels, so like if Bravo has a housewife moment, you're going to see that show up on NBC News and the Today Show, and NBC as a news org is going to talk about that. It's being pitched, it's being propagated, it's being discussed, it's being pitched, right? Um,
So that's not always organic. Like
it's
the
not.
news,
It's
sometimes just
hardly
someone
ever
actually pushing it.
organic. It's hardly ever organic unless it's a trend, and trends are fleeting. It's about being the source and letting your resources pull you back. So if we know that things that hit television news, for example, right now, not that TV news, to be honest, is highly lauded as a very credible space. To be honest, I think in December of 24, I heard this talent journalism term come up, where our values and our morals are higher integrity than the morals and values of a broadcast journalist because of the platforms that they're on. So we have less, obligation and more of an opportunity to show up and just truly be ourselves. And it's in being ourselves where we stand out. That's truly what makes us fascinating, is what, makes us ourselves. Sharing behind the scene content, going on social media and telling that story. It's the visibility on Instagram, and daily visibility and programmatic visibility that answers how as opposed to why, is visibility that will help you stay in social media and focus on engagement and all the metrics of success that the platform likes to point out are of value to you, versus perhaps action and conversion on the brand side. So that's something I'm pretty intentional about, especially through social media, is like what products on each platform that I lean into. And they're very different for each platform. Like on Instagram, I kill it on broadcast channel. I would rather be in your DMs. I would rather not post. I would rather be able to have a consistent ongoing conversation with links that can be engaged with, and conversations and polls that we can go back and forth with. And it doesn't go away after 24 hours, because I'm not going to come back every 24 hours and train you to come to a platform to see my content. I don't want consumption. I want action. So I'm intentional on literally not showing up sometimes, because I know that if I'm there, it'll become entertainment. And entertainment is important, by the way, in the media world because of the ads. Consumption, that's literally. So propagation, I know that TV wakes up at the beginning of the month, and they have hours that they need. So I'm pitching to them, hey, it's April, it's spring cleaning. I spoke to Mandy Moore about what it was like to clean XYZ. Is that something that you would like to see? I'm sitting down with Lindsay Lohan, and we're talking about being a mom now. And is there questions that you could give me that I can ask her, that I can come back to you with? So I'm using, even before the episode, not just after the episode, I'm using that opportunity to propagate and position my content, because I'm not going to repurpose it. I'm going to pre-purpose it. I'm going to pre-identify outlets that I know will support me. I will ask them for support. I will give them my support. We'll have a written agreement that gives them license to be able to support me in the way that I need support, which is globally. I don't want just, a social media post. I'm looking to be on screens on airlines and taxi TV and airport TV and elevator TV, and that comes from cooperation. So propagation is a big way to get out there. And
Hey, Blueprint fam, if you're enjoying today's episode and finding my guest insights valuable, then you'll definitely want to subscribe to the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast, as we drop weekly guest interview episodes just like this one. And on that note, you obviously also see firsthand how powerful being an effective guest, like the one you're watching on this episode right now, can be at attracting qualified, interested leads directly into your sales funnel. But I know what you're thinking. You want to get into guest podcasting, but starting feels confusing and overwhelming. What equipment do you need? And how do you look and sound great? And how do you turn listeners into leads? I know this because so many of my guests had these exact problems in the past, and that is why I created the Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint. It's a simple but powerful breakdown on everything you need to look, sound, and convert great as a podcast guest. Everything from how to set up your recording area to what equipment you need to look and sound great on camera, and what to say on podcasts to stand out, be memorable, and earn the audience's trust. And then that one key strategy to turn listeners into leads. I'm telling you, this isn't just another checklist. This is a step-by-step blueprint to make sure you look, sound, and present your best on podcasts so you can convert that attention into leads and ultimately new business. I honestly was thinking about selling this for like $97, but I'd rather give access to this guide to my personal brand blueprint podcast audience for free. So if you are ready to become a sought-after podcast guest and use it to generate leads and build your personal brand, and grab your copy of Podcast Guest Mastery Blueprint at davepoly.com/podguestblueprint. You can find the link to that in the show notes below. Again, that's davepoly.com/podguestblueprint, and start turning podcast interviews into business. Again, it's completely free for being a loyal listener, so definitely check it out. Cool? All right, let's get back to the conversation. I want to double click on that too, because
sure.
You said, what was the line? You said pre-something. What was it?
Pre-purpose.
Pre-purpose. Yeah, pre-purpose.
Yeah.
So I think this is an interesting concept because a lot of times I think we just kind of go into our content with like, this is a silo piece that I'm going to create and hopefully it drives sales or engagement, whatever your metric is. But it's like there's a step even prior to that, which is like, think about the distribution end of it, think about the repurposed version of it as well. And in order to make that successful, you need to even take a step prior to that. And it's like, well, what opportunities can I have and partnerships can I have that could then play a part in it, in its second life, if you will? Is that the way to think of it?
So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So cause I'm writing this down too because I like this. So distribution, right? So a lot of us probably, if we have a podcast or a blog, we know what an RSS feed is. It's like the address to our intellectual property. So wherever we're hosting our blogs or our podcast, like we have that RSS, and then we go to Apple Podcasts and we go to Spotify. We give permission to those platforms to pull from our RSS. So when they ping RSS, we pong them back with our episodes. So now there's a relationship of distribution. And that's usually something podcasters do when they launch their podcast on like day one or like, the 15 days leading up to it. But I have a list of over 50 podcast platforms, networks that have launched just in the last year alone. So if your podcast is more than a year old, I know for a fact that I have a list of platforms. They are English-speaking networks globally that are looking for content about marketing, parenting, B2B business, growth, monetization. They're looking for the very things that we're looking for. They're just organizing them for smaller communities globally. If you want more eyeballs and more ears on your content, get more distribution. And that list will get you instantly access to more people who are listening to you, as opposed to more episodes, more content, more value.
So more bang for your buck on the content.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Versus like more quality over quantity in a way where it's like, what can you do with the current asset that you have and allow a larger distribution of that versus trying to pump out a bunch of stuff without any type of like distribution strategy behind each.
Yeah. So like the call to action here is like, be mindful as you're creating content, whether it's written, video, or audio, that there are more platforms being created for our content. The same way there are more platforms on Apple TV or whatever, however you watch TV. There's every network has its own cable box, and some have already gone away and some have come back. The same way that we're seeing growth in organization of content on TV. If you like Friends, for example, then you know that Friends was available on Paramount Plus originally until it no longer is, and now it's only available on Netflix. So there's like a licensing deal put in place to be able to have access to that, and that's like that's network growth. But off topic here, so RSS feeds, right? So if you have a blog, if you have a blog, My recommendation, if you have a blog, and this is something that's overlooked, is I syndicate my blog through Google Publishing Center, and that costs nothing. So I go to Google Publisher Center with my blog RSS. Actually, I have a couple of different categories of my blog. I have featured podcasters, featured podcasts, top 5, articles by Vinnie Potestivo. So I broke all those RSSs down, and I register with Google as a Google publisher. Now I have people who are tapped into thousands of blogs that are tapped into the Google network that are looking for my content. I'm literally writing content only about podcasters. Not many people focus on the podcaster. They focus on the podcast, or they do these listicles. Yo, I'm all about visibility. I saw an opportunity for a spotlight, so I went in real tight. But then I also went and got visibility for my visibility of you. It's built in. That's syndication is built into my publishing model. So when I hit send, I know that hundreds of other blogs are also going to get this article instantly. And it doesn't create a new page on their account. It literally forwards them to me. So like I can literally see the direct link between that and myself. And that's syndication.
Is there a process to is there an approval process for Google Publishing?
Yeah, you have to verify you are who. So it's really about risk management and entity identification. It wants to know you are who you say you are, because it's going to make you responsible. So you have to take a picture with like your ID, and like there's a very formal process to it. But if you have if you run AdSense, or I don't think analytics requires you to have that same level of ID, but it does, because you're responsible, especially Google, because you're responsible for complying with the brand new European ordinances that have impacted, the web globally over the last 3 years. So, and it's profitable, and that's a very profitable, way to do it. And that's if you have an RSS on a blog, you can syndicate it through Google Publisher Center. If you want to aggregate it, so there are aggregators, there are platforms that like business leaders don't have time to scour the internet. I log on, I want 15 articles about marketing. I see the 15 articles about marketing. Quickly, I like one, so I post it to Facebook with a little comment. I post one to Reddit. I make a comment and I turn it into my own content on LinkedIn, because I'm a thought leader. I'm, out there seeing, like-minded content. To get into that funnel of aggregation, I use a platform called Q. So, and I'll give you this link, and we'll have, I'll give you one link that everyone will be able to get all access to everything we're talking about here. There's nothing I'm suggesting that I don't have documentation for. So it's all in the show notes, by the way. But aggregation is a big one, because aggregation, I can get your content discovered, seen, and shared without people knowing who you are, what your podcast is titled, or the episode name, like all the sort of big banner things that we do to try to, stand out. This is just literally based on context, and it's explicit. You tell Q what the context is. It's not implied based on, I don't know. It's not an implied context. So you're saying this is a podcast episode about marketing. So people who are looking for podcast episodes about marketing, for example, will get it. Look, when people are looking for you, let them find you. Like rule number 1 in casting and talent development. Like the thing I learned the most out of all those networks and shows, and when people are looking for you, let them find you. I would say to the people who are searching, be careful where you look, because you're always going to find, what you're looking for. But for the people looking to get discovered, find yourself first. That's where discovery happens. Like, find yourself first. Be doing the thing you want to be doing when you get discovered, surrounded by the people that you want to be surrounded with, when that moment happens.
I feel like that's a topic to dive into all on its own.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's I've just seen artists who've hit it in their second, third, fourth album, and then their first, second, third goes platinum again. It's okay if you've been putting in the work and you haven't had your moment yet. It's coming. But just like, be mindful that there are new audiences and new platforms. I'm an executive from media platforms. Platforms need stars. That's what they need. They need stars. They need people to stand out. That's what attracts viewers. That's what attracts numbers. That's what moves advertising. So lean into these new platforms, these new networks. They're big opportunities for
I want to touch on that for a second too, because I know authenticity and being like your unique self is, I think you, in some words, like your superpower to stand out, to be unique and all that. Can you kind of speak to that? Because I know with celebrities, sometimes you don't really know what you're getting. That's why these like reality TV shows were so cool, is because it's a peek behind the curtain of like, are they really like this, or is this just their red carpet selves? But when we see celebrities and we see influencers or whatever that are just like, mask off, this is them, we feel so comfortable with them and like we trust them more. And so it's difficult for sometimes for people, I think, to do that because they feel like, I don't know if I'm good enough or whatever. But like, what can you kind of speak to our audience who's like, how do I just like show up and be myself so that it attracts the right people that I want to attract?
Oh, it's a great question. I think the one answer here is to accept that we have multiple personas. It doesn't mean that we're different people on or off camera. I certainly speak to my friends differently in front of my grandparents than I do when I'm just around my peers. I certainly talk about media. This conversation, our vocabulary, it's a little specific to like, this is my visibility media persona. I'm also stepping into what I know are my two core strengths, passion and power. And I've identified that and I lean into that. And I can answer any question that you throw my way through one of those two lenses and trust that whatever answer comes out of my mouth is going to fall into the brand of me because I'm leaning into either passion, my ability to build momentum and get conversations started, or power, my ability to sustain conversations and get things greenlit, moved on, and be sustainably self-fulfilling. I've done the work on that. There's actually, so I'll give you a link for that too. There's a brilliant test that I give all of my clients when they start working with me that just helped me get a lot of clarity, written by a woman named Sally Hogshead. It's called How to Fascinate. So VPE.tv/fascinate. I think we'll get you like 30% off. So I'll give you that link too. But that was just a piece of paper. To me, it's just a quiz. Everyone's got a quiz, but this was a quiz that gave me clarity that I trusted and I leaned into. And trust is a big part of it. Like when you're looking for visibility, if you want to get discovered, you got to find yourself. I was told, my mom told me that I had to find a casting director in Times Square if I ever wanted to be in the entertainment industry. Like that was the direction I got as a kid. You want to know what ended up happening? I worked at MTV in Times Square. I met a casting director in '98 who got me that job, but I left in 2007 as that casting director too. So
That's crazy.
I like to think I found myself. In a lot
Yeah,
of ways.
right. Found yourself.
I was the person that I was searching for.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of my visibility came from. I did one thing really well: tell stories and make collaborations possible. Closing deals is tough. I also didn't collaborate. I integrated. I didn't just take their stories. I made them executive producers and gave them EP fees and businesses that they were able to own and take ownership over. And like in terms of partnerships, if you want to elevate like your visibility, yes, collaboration is the way to create some noise. Integration, you taking a segment of me talking to Beyoncé and dropping it in your podcast, and me taking a segment of one of your favorite moments and dropping it, integrating each other is far more rewarding than collaborating. Like go create another goal so we can work together. That sounds like busy work. Get out of here.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I know you brought that up before in terms of how to like partner and integrate and collaborate with other people in order to like increase visibility and awareness. What are some like creative ways that we can think about that aren't the typical ways that we see a lot of on LinkedIn? There'll be like a collaboration of a post or something, but what other types of ways can we collaborate with people to increase our visibility?
I learned this answer, literally learned this answer from Beyonce, and I got to talk to her and her dad about this. It was Destiny's Child and their solo careers, and then Destiny's Child and then their solo careers. It was that rhythm of coming together and building an audience as a group, separating, building your own unique audiences, and then combining those solo audiences as one large community. Because what happened in 2 steps was Destiny's Child has an audience, Then Beyonce, Kelly, Michelle go away. They each get their audiences. They come back. Now there are solo audiences and Destiny's Child audience. That's 4 audiences in one room. That is the power of community. That is why artists lean into deals with Pepsi and Coke and Nintendo and big companies, because, to be honest, and Beyonce shared this, because Sony doesn't have that money. Sony doesn't have $150 million to promote an album, but Nintendo and Pepsi and Coke do. And that gets everybody paid, because they're going to use your music, and there's going to be a licensing fee. And then there's also going to be a recording fee, and there's all the writers get paid. So you become really layered in the opportunities when you own them. The best brands are the ones that are built with solid foundations. The best way to connect and grow with people over long term is integration. Here's some examples. Collaborations look like what we saw with Snoop and Martha. At first, it's a really successful collaboration. Then it turns into integration. Now they've got big lighter lines and houseware lines, and they've got accessories and products that support each other's individual and this collaborative brand. That's an interesting growth from collaboration, to integration. Integration looks like quizzes are out right now. Alex Sanfilippo, the guy who created Podmatch, has this brilliant product called PodScore. So if you don't know what your strengths or weaknesses as a podcast, he literally connects you with not just people, but opportunities to grow. So he's this generous quiz that will help score your visibility and your production and your workflow. And if visibility is something that you need help with, as a result of you needing more visibility, I'm integrated into that system as a result of you getting more support. And I have a separate landing page on my website where I receive his leads from that quiz, because I'm integrated into that quiz, versus collaborated on a podcast episode, which is, more of a one-off,
right.
Versus integrating, which would be like us having a series, I guess, together, and, that way. Integration, though, the buy-in is there. You get audience and you get community with integration. With community, you just get audience.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of being able to kind of grow your own individual audience, but then kind of come together to share audiences. And that's kind of the value, I guess, of continuing to grow your own audience, is then an asset that you can bring to the table for larger and larger partnerships, essentially. You want your name attached to me because you're tapping into an audience, an asset that I have.
It's funny you said Cher, and I was thinking in my head, Sonny and Cher are a great example where it starts off as a collaboration, but it launches one person's career. Lucy and Desi Arnaz, it starts off as a collaboration, launches one woman's career. Jessica Simpson, Nick Lachey starts off as a collaboration, launches one woman's career. Although, with all due respect to Nick, he does a very good job on Love Is Blind with Vanessa. So
is that what he's doing these days?
Yeah, that's what
I haven't caught up lately.
Yeah,
let's talk.
Yeah, there's
content.
life after boy band, right? There's life after boy band.
Yeah, it's always the TV shows. So you're hosting something, essentially.
Yeah.
So let's talk content strategy.
Yes.
How do you think about what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, and what results are you trying to? What's the end result ROI that you're trying to generate through your content, and how do you look at your content in order to achieve that?
That's a brilliant question. So I don't have sort of pillar content. I don't create something long form and then cut it down short form and then salt and pepper it over, all the platforms. I kind of have a platform pillar, which is LinkedIn, because of the way that those products talk to the internet and email. It's I lean into LinkedIn for a couple of reasons. I lean into LinkedIn because of its newsletter opportunity, our ability to efficiently write articles that people can subscribe to, and then in publishing an article, I send them a free email. They get a notification in feed, an app notification, and an alert in their notification. I mean, when I post a newsletter, this is a very high value follow. In fact, LinkedIn values it so much that if you follow my LinkedIn newsletter, you'll automatically follow me. That's a really cool feature.
Oh, wow.
My newsletter is the resource, because the newsletter is the thing that people are going to share. Mel Robbins has Let Them. Everyone's going to talk about, buy the book, let them, buy the book, let them. No one's going to give you Mel Robbins' phone number, the source is for me. The resource is for you. My friend Alicia Barr wrote this book, How to Win More Sales Without Acting Like a Douchebag. She's so awesome, by the way.
That's awesome.
But this is, I want you to buy this book. I'm not going to give you my best friend's name, and I just did. So go look her up on LinkedIn and give her a like. Tell her Vinny sent you. But I'm not going to give you access. That's the point. And LinkedIn rewards the source, not just the resource. It also is something that gets crawled by Bing, which shows up in ChatGPT, and it also shows up in a Google search result instantly. So the newsletter for me is a big thing. I'm going to quote Cher to answer your. Okay, I didn't answer your question. Here comes the answer. If it's not going to be relevant 5 years from now, I'm not talking about it. Mm-hmm. That's my filter. I don't pre-write things. I wake up one morning and I feel like today's the day that I'm prepared to receive comments and phone calls and emails and action based on the way that I know that I can show up and create impact. I have a format that I believe in. It's actually something that I share. It's something that there's a science. I literally broke the science down with LinkedIn, and I think it's this post structure that ultimately got me to be a LinkedIn top voice, and also one of the first podcasters on the LinkedIn Podcast Network. Was the structure that I lean into when I write my posts, which allows me to show up and just trust the structure that I've given myself. So like I never lead with a question. I always lead with the answer. And then I frame the question, and then I give some takeaways. I stick to very specific emojis so that you know where the action is. My best performing posts right now on LinkedIn this year, 2025 so far, are the ones that do not have any hashtags. So I've removed hashtags from all of my posts because I just feel like hashtags look spammy anyway. It's like, I love you, hashtags ZZ, Disney hotties find me. I don't know. Like, it's like
I feel like hashtags were in the beginning were to help give the algorithm an understanding of what's in the content, but technology's gotten to a point where it can give context now. Like it understands.
Remember, we'd be like, it can't read it can't read your images, and if it does, it doesn't know what it means. Now it knows what it means.
Yeah, it knows exactly what. And it can create the images too if it wants to.
Yeah, actually, this new update with GPT that makes it literate. Like now it's actually real words, and you can actually get real usable thumbnails for your content and real usable, like, for example, like if you didn't know, right now with the update that just happened on GPT, if you haven't been creating original artwork for your podcast, instead of opening up a Canva account, if you already pay for GPT-4, you can now just have GPT-4 create your artwork and your thumbnails and your promo assets instead of having to go to Canva and do that whole workflow. That's big to be able to stand out. But the thing I do to stand out more, well, my trick here is I upload all my artwork to Jiffy. Jiffy. It depends on what generation you're from.
I'm team Giphy.
Giphy, cool. I'm Xenia. I'm Giphy too. So I go to Giphy. I upload all of my assets, and I get to collaborate with other artists, like a button that says subscribe here. Maybe I might take Beyonce's face and embed a popular sticker on this article. But I'm also giving my topic visibility. If you search for the word LinkedIn on Giphy, if you're in LinkedIn and you search on the GIF button for LinkedIn, I pop up with like a couple of variations of the same image, drinking a LinkedIn mug. One that's just blank. The other one that says, let's connect, which actually has like 17 million views. The other thing that's funny about that is I uploaded this before the advent of AI video. So now I have real-time video processors that are tapping into the language learning model and visual models that are out there as a resource. And anytime someone says LinkedIn, my GIF is being pulled into their video. So like I'm getting added visibility now. It's something that I give permission to also, that I had to sign my permission to. I know it was impressive to LinkedIn, and that's it. If you can show up in places where people are looking for you, you make them the geniuses for finding you. That was my job at MTV. It was this. Oh yeah, Mandy Moore, she's going to be a big star. You could be the person who like finds her. We could be the network that like makes a star. Like we could literally claim that we gave her the first opera. Like that's what that, by the way, that's a part of social media I wish people saw in real social media, was how you have to socialize a concept in corporate media because it looks like what social media should look like: proof and fun and conversation, not promotion and link clicking and hashtag spamming. And you're right, the AI knows. So like my recommendation: drop the hashtags, be ahead of the curve, drop the hashtags.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Yeah, I know we were going to have a good conversation, and we did not disappoint. I've already taken a bunch of notes. What's kind of one exclamation mark that you want to make sure our audience goes home knowing from this conversation? If you had one kind of thing that you wanted to make sure they took away from the conversation today.
Like, it's 2025. This is like literally the year of self-determination. And you have the opportunity to tell Google and LinkedIn and Gemini and GP. You have the ability now to tell them who you are and not let them tell you who you are. Like, forget the implication and the implied version of growing your brand. Lean into the explicit component. I'm a podcast guest. One of the things I do uniquely is after a podcast, I'll give the host here, you'll get it after this, Dave, you'll see. I'll suggest, hey, here are 50 other words I enjoy having in the title, because I know you're going to create content that's powerful. What I want to do is avoid the word former, and what I want to do is focus on the word visibility or amplification, and you'll see how I do it. But I'm leading with that visibility, letting you know what I want. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you an idea of what the bigger picture is for me and how you can help me with that. That's self-determination. And that starts when you find yourself. It's hard work. It's possible. My door was open at MTV, the same way my door is open at LinkedIn. And if you have questions about this episode or just personal questions, it's an open door policy. So reach out to me there is the best place.
Yeah, I was going to say, so people did want to connect with you. Is that the best place to find you is LinkedIn?
Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn, but if you don't know the spelling of my name, go back to the podcast episode where you hit play. And like, let this be the moment. Like, it costs nothing to leave a 5-star review, guys. Nothing. So please let this be the episode. Please let this be the episode that you take the leap, leave Dave a 5-star review. If you take a snapshot of that and tag me on social media on that, I'll also repost that, because I love reframing and supporting action. Not just support, but action. Action really matters. So it's a long Italian name, but you'll only get it in the show notes. And also the links there will take you to literally free step-by-step guides to everything we discussed here. And I'm happy to support. Dave, thanks for the space, man.
This was awesome. Thank you so much, Vinnie. And I love the support as well. Podcasters supporting podcasters. Gotta love to see it. So, Vinnie, thank you so much for being on the show today. That's all for today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. See you next Tuesday. Today, we learned about my guest's origin story, unique methods, and credibility. If you want to see me break down how today's guest can use those tools within the Personal Brand Blueprint strategy to attract, convince, and convert new qualified leads so you can do the same for your business, then check out this episode here. Or if you want to continue to hear more incredible personal branding origin stories and learn more valuable personal branding skills from my awesome guests, then check out the full playlist of interviews here.